Hello everybody, this is Christina Wallis and welcome to my channel. If it's your first time here, this is where I upload regular videos on making flowers with your own hands. Out of cold porcelain, which is flexible, air-dry clay specifically designed for making flowers, or sugar, which is very similar to work with to cold porcelain. And today we're going to be making a jasmine. And so without further ado, let's get stuck in and see what we could make of it and what we could all learn out of this process. I would like to point out a little correction. The wire here would need to be a lot longer, especially if you're doing an arrangement like I've ended up doing. So as it comes out of a packet, I would just cut it in 3 to be on the safe side, or 4, but certainly not into 6 as I've done here. And yeah, this middle is very simple really. I'm going to cover it with gelatin. And this gelatin is has been kind of ground down with a cell pin to make it smaller. And this is just a consistency that I think is right. Adding a bit of color powder in there, and it sticks to clay really well and to sugar. Okay, so you start off trying to shape it into a bit of a tear shape. And then as you go along, it kind of becomes a bit of a mushroom, one of those sweets, mushroom sweets in if you're in UK, you know, pink and white ones in the sweet shops for kids. And this is my way to portion this little to be flower into 5 portions to be petals. And if your clay or your gum paste is a little dry, then you find that you won't need to add any corn flour. But if it's on the soft side, then you might want to add corn flour here at this stage for these petals not to stick together. And now we're going to kind of work on them one by one, on and on and on, using different tools, often our fingers, sometimes scissors. Here we go. I'm separating them. Now can you see this little whiskers, cuticles, whatever they're called, that kind of stick out? You're going to tidy them up later with something. I've forgotten to film it. I'm going to try to edit something else in. But yeah, so you kind of stretch and widen away from yourself each petal. For jasmine, I find that these petals are quite long, so there is a temptation to make them symmetrical, and I have fallen to that temptation clearly. But actually those petals, if you look at them, they're quite long. So if you like them long, stretch them out a little bit and don't get them too wide. Here we go. So this is a good way to get rid of this little things that stick out in between the petals to make them look tidier. I don't think I've done it on every flower. Some flower makers would really frown at me for that. But here you go. If you're working with sugar, then those cuticles will most likely fall off by themselves because they're so thin, or you can clear them off when the sugar paste dries, certainly. But with cold porcelain, no such luck. Now here you would work with Dresden tool, plastic Dresden tool, if you work with sugar. But plastics seem to really stick to cold porcelain in the most unexpected and unfortunate times. So I just use metal stick. Don't be fooled that metal stick does something incredible. It's just a metal factor that I like. Make sure you flatten the middle, by the way. There are quite a number of flowers, similar small flowers, with middle kind of sticking out and giving you different kind of a character there. But this jasmine middle, it's actually really flat, and then you have this little nice yellow middle kind of sticking out. I thought it was quite a cute feature of it. So yeah, try not to ignore that bit if you like it as well. Look at the real pictures and stuff. And at the end, just curl them up. Now again, some pictures show jasmine petals being really thin and flat and curled in, and some don't. So have a look around and see the look that you prefer. And here I'm using a thicker needle to make a hole that's bigger than the stem, so it kind of peeks through. That's also the look that I wanted to do. For that, really I needed a thicker kind of a neck of this flower. Okay, so this one is a different flower. I wanted to show you how to smoothen the neck if it gets a little bit creased. Basically, it didn't go quite to plan. The flower is a little bit creased, and I still quite like the flower itself, and it took me time, so I don't want to do it. I'm just adding a little bit of water, and then I'm smoothing this flower, the bottom of this flower, with my fingers and the brush. It works for gum paste as well. Basically, you just make the neck really wet and then water floods in the creases. So now we're going to do little buds, and you don't really strictly need the little hooks on the ends of wires, but yeah, I've done them anyway because I am hook addicted. So add a bit of glue. Water might do if your clay or your gum paste is still fresh. I mean, for gum paste you would use sugar glue, obviously. Not that anyone would ever eat buds, but there goes. And yeah, here we go. I'm speeding it up a little bit. Buds are very, very easy to make. They have lovely long necks, but yeah, they're very easy to make, easier than it looks. Maybe it looks easy enough, I don't know. And you could make it quite distinctive at the end, pinch it towards the end, or just leave it as is. You go, I'm pinching it, but you could leave them quite smooth as well if you want to. It's up to you. Easiest bit of a flower by a long shot, really. Okay, so a bit of a disclosure when making leaves. The way I make leaves here, this is the thickness of the clay of a rollout, and the way I make leaves here only works for cold porcelain. For sugar, you would need to wire them individually and then tape them on, and it is a pain. There is another way of attaching these leaves to the stem for cold porcelain that would look amazing and lovely. Here we go. These leaves are quite thick and meaty, so I don't actually thin them out too much. So anyway, for cold porcelain you would need to also wire them and then attach them individually with super glue and then cover the stem with the glue. I'm not going to do any of that. I might just do a separate YouTube on doing that alone because it's a long-winded process. If you want to see it, please let me know, and I will just do a pretty little stem, nothing else. But for purpose of this exercise here, I'm just going to skip over and be lazy and add it as faster version. And yeah, you just pinch it over your little. I'm going to show you later on how to do those little stems, how to cover them. And yeah, and since my cutters are not exactly 100% leaves, I'm going to just trim it down. The cutters are chrysanthemum, I think. I don't know what they are actually. I think they're meant to be for chrysanthemum. I picked them up on some fair somewhere a long time ago. Yes, so here we go. Job's a good one. I don't know. It seems like a really lazy way of doing it, and I was in two minds whether I should keep it on my YouTube channel. But then, you know, something like this needs to be shown in a separate video. So if enough people are interested, I appreciate that most of you work with sugar, so it won't apply to you at all. So that was another reason why I didn't want to bore you with you know, with a very meticulous technique that won't serve many people. But if you want to see them, if you want to see me doing a very precise, very neat branch of leaves with cold porcelain, using technique that you can't really transfer into sugar or not easily, then please let me know in the comments and I will do something like this in the next few months. So this is a little cutter I'm going to use for imitating calyxes at the bottom of my blooms. Doesn't have to be too thin. A lot of you asked me where I got this cutter, so apologies for not getting back to you before. I've managed to backtrack some paperwork for it, so here we go. Gem cutters. You kind of need to leave them there for a bit longer or else they won't come out. So they come out a little bit on the dry side, which makes them kind of fray to be able to thin out. And then you just add a little bit of glue or sugar glue and attach them onto the bottom. It's quite straightforward. You can just have a little blob of green and not bother with any of this at the same time. It may look as cute or cuter in fact, because I think you could, if you really want to do something for competition or whatever, it might be an idea to cut it out with scissors as well, make them look cuter, but then, you know, they might moan at you and say it's not botanically correct, so who knows. This is how I've done it. You could disattach, you can remove that last little segment, by the way, to make them maybe neater again. And here we go. Okay, now we're going to assemble the whole thing. Now, do you see why I needed wires a lot longer than I initially cut them out into? Because really that yellow pistil of each flower is actually what ends up holding the whole long flower there. So yeah, it did need to be quite thick. Composition is a funny old thing. It might help to find a similar little branch somewhere that you would like, how it's composed and how it's done, and then just copy it. But anyway, I've just put it together. And here I use quite a dry cold porcelain. Could have been a little bit less dry actually, because it's a bit too dry to smoothen out, so I overdone on dryness here, but then it dries so quickly when you add colouring in it, so that's what happened. It was just a bit over dry, slightly less dry. Cover it, and then once you're more or less happy with it, with the straightness of it, then smoothen it with water. I used to really blob it on wet, and I found that although it works for some people, for me it didn't really work. Yeah, so this one is it's loads of fiddling going into all this stems, but so if it takes you forever, that's what it takes, but then it would be boring to watch, right? So yeah, this is a nice way to kind of disguise a little joiners there, and I think it's similar. It actually does look a bit like this in real flowers. So yeah, so this is my two main branches that go at the front, and then the rest go at the back. And yeah, once they're assembled, I'm going to tone them just using normal dust. Actually, I normally use oil paint, as some of you would know, but this time round I'm using just edible dust, really, which is also fine, but they don't sit quite as well. So I just wanted to see how I like edible dust on cold porcelain, really, but on sugar, that's perfectly fine. So if you pretend this is sugar, this is how it is. Okay. So these flowers here, they are in cold porcelain, but sugar would work out exactly the same, really. There's hardly any difference in the way the paste would behave, paste and the clay. If you want me to in the future try and include a little bit of demo in sugar, I will consider doing that. It's just my running time of the video extends, becomes 20 minutes, and then you guys just drop out halfway through and YouTube doesn't like it. So this is why I make my videos shorter, well, I went through a phase of making them longer, but it's not working out, so I'm gonna try to cut them down to 10 minutes. Well, this one is 15 minutes, but I'm heading in the right direction, right? And here I'm just adding a little bit of color, of an accent here and there, already on an assembled branch. Sometimes it's easier to see the full picture. And yeah, I've used edible dust just to play with it, really. And yeah, they're quite nice. I have loads of colors in them, unlike any other non-edible colors still from when I used to work with sugar. And yeah, here we go. I'm quite pleased with my jasmine. I love jasmine anyway. It's a lovely, best smelling flowers. One of my best friends called Jasmine, so it's all good. It's all good. And this is about it. I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and my next couple of tutorials on here are going to be tulip and rose, the one I've started a few weeks ago, and I may well be doing live demos on them on my social media, Instagram or Facebook, so do check them out if you're interested, and I see you again soon.